contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or get involved in the conversation on social media. Join the Pearl Jam Podcast community group on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at liveonfourlegspod.
As you see, every show on this tour has been different. This one's certainly different. You probably heard Matt Cameron, we lost him. He's making strides to get back to the stage and feel better. He tested positive and it took him down hard. So we've had to rally some troops and use everybody's talents to the best of their abilities. Who knew that Josh Klinghoffer was such a fantastic drummer? Well, his mom. And we've got another surprise for you coming up here soon. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Hey everybody, now welcome to Live on Four Legs, the definitive live Pearl Jam podcast. And as for covering shows on this podcast, as we do every single week, week in, week out, these are the last 3 episodes of the year right here. And we made a big promise that we really wanted to kind of flash back and do some memories on the 2022 shows. And that's what we're going to do for the next couple weeks. And we're very excited about it because it's new music, it's new stories, and it kind of gives us an opportunity to take a grander look at what happened this year and put the puzzle pieces together, because there is a good story coming out of nearly every good show that happened this year. And I will say that it wasn't our decision. We loved all the decisions that were made for all the show picks, but it was your decision if you were on Facebook or Patreon. And for the West Coast tour portion of the little 2022 rewind, our show today is going to be Fresno, California. You probably know what happens. There's a lot to discuss to get there. Randy Sobel over here, John Farrar over there.
Hello. We made it to December, getting to do some of these more recent shows. These are definitely like fresh in the memory. I didn't have to go back and dig in too much because I remember this happening.
Yeah, of course. And, I think for this show, I actually did need to dig a little bit further because when it was happening live, that was one I was completely out because I was leaving for Sacramento the next day.
Yeah.
So I had no prior knowledge as to what really happened. I knew the Krusen stuff. I knew a couple things here and there, but I didn't really get to listen to the show. So I listened to it about a month or two ago. And I think anytime I get on the first listen, I try not to use my, podcast researcher brain here. I just kind of listen to it to enjoy. And I enjoyed it very much. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, now we have kind of the story that we can kind of piece together from here. So why don't we start there? And it all kind of has to start really with what happened in Oakland. So, reiterating this stuff for history's sake, I know everybody that is listening to it in 2022, they know the story, but hell, if this thing is still around in 2027, 2028, and new people that subscribe to the show need to learn about it, then we're just going to explain things right from the jump and not have to worry about making it feel obvious. So here we go. Oakland night 1 and night 2 on May 12th and 13th. To open the show, you kind of see that the Yamaha drum set's not there. And you're like, uh-oh, what's going on? This is a little peculiar. And then, yes, they come out, they do Rockin' in the Free World, but that's Josh Klinghoffer behind the set. It's Josh Klinghoffer, it is Richard Stuverud, and then a couple of fill-in players. We had Josh Arroyo, and we also had Kai Nukermans fill in on drums for Matt, who was stricken with COVID and had to stay in Phoenix. So those two shows, they go along as smooth as they can. Not perfect, but very, very good shows. And then we get to the Monday following those, which happens to be in Fresno, California. This is kind of the thing where I think Oakland, you're like, okay, let's ride off the seam of our pants. And then Fresno, you're kind of unsure. Well, is Matt still sick? What's going on? What's the story there? And you'd have to assume probably. He's probably still going to be out because you usually need at least a week before it's completely out of your system. I think there were rumors swirling around the internet, as there always are, that at soundcheck they had played 6 songs from 10. And I think that kind of got a lot of people thinking, okay, well, what else could they be doing? It has to be Krusen. They have a good relationship with Krusen. They brought him up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He hasn't been with the band in a very, very long time, but it would make for a very special moment. So that kind of got people thinking right away. And then, once Josh comes out on stage, he said it like a billion times, like, oh, you're in for something really special tonight. So all of the caps were kind of tipped as to what would happen. And even if you really didn't pick up on it, you kind of knew that you were in for something really, really good on this. And that just leads into everything that Krusen did for the show, which is going to be just fun to talk about. Yeah, there's something special about Krusen being the original drummer that a lot of people, I think, in this community, they appreciate, but still don't quite understand because he just, when 10 was popular, he wasn't there. It's like, okay, we got to hear him on the record, but we don't know who he is. So I think that's a lot of what we're going to get into when we get into the songs. But I have to bring up a couple of things. So the last time that he was involved with a live show with Pearl Jam that wasn't the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was back May 25th, 1991. And that was actually the Singles Rap Party. And I think the story goes that he had an argument with somebody and it got a little testy. I don't know the specific details for that, but it all kind of ended up with him having to deal with the substance abuse problem. So he and the band made a mutual decision that he go get this fixed, and they were going to support him as a human being. And then he got past that point in his life and moved on. He played in Candlebox, he played in a couple other bands, and I think that there's a lot of questions as to the what ifs on this, and we'll get to that in just a second. But, what if Krusen stuck with this? What if Krusen got to relish in the limelight that Pearl Jam had in 1992? Would it have been different? Dave A was such a big personality that, a lot of who Pearl Jam was, if it wasn't Ed, it was Dave A. So you usually don't get that. One of the biggest rock bands had a personnel change before the album even came out, and then never really gets shown at all. We only have, out of bootlegs in 1991, I think we only had 3 performances of him, and I think they're all when they were Mookie Blaylock, so really, really rare.
Well, the thing is, too, like with new bands, it's really common to kind of change members. And I think Dave Grohl mentions this in the Foo Fighters documentaries, is like every band does this, but Pearl Jam was just so famous from the jump that it became a big deal and everybody knew. But in bands, you see this all the time with new bands that start up, someone comes in, doesn't work out. By the time, if they pay their dues and work hard, by the time they get known, you kind of know who those people are. But yeah, it's a unique situation in that they were kind of thrust into the spotlight very early on, so that we kind of knew who these people were before we even really knew anything about them.
There's a lot of good questions as to what if Krusen were on Versus, Vitalogy, and Forward. I did pose the question of the week here, and I think it's a good one. We didn't get a lot of answers, but we got a lot of good answers. So if you can pick one or two songs outside of the 10 era that you'd think Dave Krusen would excel on, what would they be? Before I get into everybody else's answers here, I want to know your answer first, and I'll share one of mine. So what'd you think?
Yeah, I immediately went to the later stuff, like something off a Backspacer or something off a Lightning Bolt. I saw someone had a response that was the song Lightning Bolt, and I think that was something that jumped out to me too. I think that's going to be my answer as well. I'm going to piggyback off of that because I think those two records more fit kind of what his wheelhouse is.
So are you saying he was more of a pop rock kind of guy and
Yeah,
more kind of
kind of.
upbeat?
Yeah.
Because see, I think that he can do that, and I think that is something that he'll stand out on. But I also think that he would have been great on the following two records. And somebody really brought up Yield, and we'll talk about them in a sec. I think that In Hiding would have been a perfect song for him. I really do. Like in this show, he excels on the moments where he's gradually able to build up. He's gradually able to build up into that moment and make it feel big at the biggest moment. And almost like you're not paying attention to him at all until you get to the climactic moment of the song. And even then, in some instances, he's just like, I'm just there. I'm going to give it to everybody else to take the spotlight, and I don't need it. And I think that that's a pretty impressive thing, because out of the three other drummers, they do take spotlight. You do turn your head when you listen to them. And, sometimes it's kind of like Ringo in a way. You're not noticing the drums at first, but then like one little fill that just completes the piece, just all makes it work out.
Well, I think it's because Ringo is very sneakily technical and very inventive in ways that not many drummers have, but a lot of it gets overshadowed because of what was in front of him. And I think the similarities there, because it could have worked the same way in Pearl Jam, because you have generational talent at guitar, bass, rhythm guitar, vocals.
Yep.
So the guy behind the drums doesn't need to be the superstar. Like, he just needs to be solid and like hold it down and do the thing. Dave Krusen could have easily done that, but Eddie has said they've been very lucky in that Dave A was a very talented drummer, very technical drummer, and Matt Cameron is a superstar, and he can hold his own with those other generational talents, and they make this kind of five-headed monster that is one of the greatest American rock bands of all time. But yeah, I think Dave K, he didn't need to take the spotlight on the songs, because I think he was fine, like, sitting back, and you can tell a little bit of that here. I mean, obviously, this is a unique situation. He didn't have a lot of time to practice. It's interesting, if they had had a couple more shows, what would have happened. But he seems very content to just keep it simple, let the guys have their parts, and I'm just going to sit here and do my thing.
Yeah, I can see all that. I think there's so much to talk about once we get into his performances that I'm going to leave it for that and then get into all your guys' answers right now. From Evan Hathaway on Facebook, he's thinking Rats instantly comes to mind. And I agree. I think that kind of the jazzy rhythm to it, like I think that goes hand in hand with Jeff. And I think he would have had a really nice balance there with him. And yeah, I think Patrick kind of brought that up as well. There is some overlap in verses with him and Dave A, where they both could have worked really well on the same songs. And yeah, I think Rats is right in the wheelhouse. Absolutely. Let's go to Kimmy Byram. This was an interesting one. She says, although I lean very heavily into the Irons bias, I've always felt that Krusen could have slid very comfortably into Yield. Yes, it would be a different vibe, and I wouldn't change it, but he's always had the chops. He's a unique player, less tribal, and as you mentioned, more jazzy. I like his ability to improvise. Yeah, I think that there are songs in Yield which he can excel. A lot of people, when kind of being posed the same question about Yield, they said, like, No Way, and they said Faithful, they said MFC. I'm even thinking Given a Fly here, because I think the same thing, like, what I really loved out of the show is just getting to those builds, and when Matt gets to the builds, it's like you hear Matt, you feel Matt, you know he's there. You said he was a superstar, obviously. And with Dave, it's just All right. Well, the song is building. The song is building, but you don't have to worry about what's he doing because the rest of the song, it's elevated by him, but highlighted by what Mike and Ed are doing.
And Yield is also very anthemic, and it has a lot of those songs that kind of soar and do the things that the songs on 10 did, that No Code and a lot of Verses in Vitalogy weren't. So I can see that being one that is more like a 10 record, and that's what we're familiar with him on. So I can see that being a good call. Yeah.
Mark Kirby had 5. He says, Save You, The Fixer, Lightning Bolt, which you had just mentioned, No Way, and Breaker Fall. That's an interesting mix, and those are all, aside from No Way, those are all 2000 songs.
And one of them was a Matt Cameron song, so that would have been.
That is weird. I guess kind of in the same way that you were saying, like Fixer, Lightning Bolt, sort of the poppy vibe and kind of keeping rhythm for a poppier vibe. Ryan said Present Tense and Life Wasted. What do you feel about that?
Present Tense, I can't get on board with that. Life Wasted, sure, being Avocado Records, similar to those other ones too that we talked about.
Yeah. And anthemic arena rock song.
Yeah.
How about Immortality? This is from Vanessa. How about Immortality?
You'd have to convince me.
I know it's so tough because of what Jack did with it and mastered, and obviously Matt has mastered it too now in his own little way as well.
We just don't have the sample size to know like what he would have turned into and what he could do with this stuff.
Right. Jared mentions Dissident, another Versus one.
Okay.
Marker in the Sand, Dance of Clairvoyance. Dance of Clairvoyance is weird. I don't know how to take that one because it's just like, it's almost like even Matt couldn't really do the song justice live. Like it wasn't a drum machine, you know? It doesn't put a damper on the song at all. It's very hard to replicate.
Yeah.
Let's get into like one or two more. I know we had a good one or two from Twitter. How about Light Years?
Maybe. It's another one of those kind of mid-tempo, has a little soaring part to it. Yeah, I could see that.
What do you think about Insignificance? That's a really tough one because that is very Cameron involved, and it's very much of a drive.
Doesn't seem like a Krusen wheelhouse song, but different people hear it different ways.
This may be one of the top answers for this. How about Can't Keep?
Okay, that could work.
I like that little shuffle in the beginning. I think that's kind of up his alley.
Something like Of the Girl, too, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll throw this one out there because it's from Luke, but what do you think of In My Tree? I say absolutely not.
Yeah, no. That's a Jack thing through and through.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Great answers, everybody. That was fun. I want to take 1 minute before we get into the set to address something that I think anybody that is listening to the show is probably thinking first thing when they see our episode art. This poster is one of the worst posters of all time.
It doesn't do anything for me. It's just like, I think sometimes they try too hard to tie it into what the local area is like, and I guess when this came out, people were saying, Fresno is known for horse breeding or horse racing or something. And it's like, sure. But yeah, it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, it felt, I don't know, like the apples on the side. It felt a little too just corny and sort of like 1950s-ish. I don't know. Yeah, look, they approve everything that goes out there. So apparently they liked it, but the people spoke and they said absolutely not. The horse is big thumbs down. So got that out of the way for everybody that wanted to hear, this is the worst poster ever. You got that. So now we can go into the show. Josh Klinghoffer is behind the kit for this to start this out, and he's going to be on the first 7, and we're going to open with Small Town.
1, 2, 3, 4, 2. I seem to recognize your face. Haunting, familiar, I can't seem to place it. Can I find a candle of thought to light your name? Yeah, lifetimes are catching up with me. All these change is taking place. I wish I'd seen the place, but no one's ever taken on me.
All right, so let's address this right now. Ed is clearly struggling here, and the story is going to happen after Given a Fly, but he's dealing with some food poisoning, some stomach issues here, and his voice is just not keeping up with the first bunch of songs. He needs some time to, I guess, just warm up and get into it, but from Small Town through about like a little before Daughter, I guess, there are points where he really struggles, and he gives things to the crowd, but he's trying too hard to sort of share those moments with the crowd too. So there's one moment, it feels a little awkward before he gets the hello line, but he gets such a great response, and he kind of is like, all right, I can take a step back. But then the part at the end where he really goes high on the away, like, I don't know if he was trying to attempt that or not. It was broken up, but those are tough moments. Those are tough moments and anything that they're going to play here is going to be a tough moment for him on a really tough night. So it's a little challenging to listen to, I won't lie, but that's the show we were given.
And I noticed that too. There are some parts that felt like he should have given more to the crowd, but he has that thing in his brain that's like, I can do this. I've been doing this for 30 years. This is what I do. I can do it. And he really should have let them do more. He probably even still did too much. And we're going to talk about it more as the show goes on. There's a couple early that you mentioned that are really rough. I thought Do the Evolution was bad. But, I mean, this show is about survival. The show's held together with duct tape and Band-Aids. He mentions, absolutely could not cancel. So you're kind of getting what you get. And, like, in the crowd, like, if I had been there, yes, I would have been pumping them up. Like, yeah, dude, give it to us. We'll sing every note. Go take a seat. We got this. It just comes off on the bootleg as you can dissect a little more. You can kind of go note for note and hear things. And, yeah, he is struggling.
I thought Given to Fly was definitely, a really big struggle point for him too, because there's so many moments where he has to go high, and it's almost like he has to think for a second, like, okay, I know I can't do it, but then if I go low, then I'm off an octave or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really tough. And I think that on Josh's side too, Given to Fly was a little tough, because that he knows the songs, but he's still trying to, especially for this particular situation, he's trying to adapt in order to help Ed. So he's going a little bit slower on a song where Pearl Jam usually kind of plays at a little faster tempo than on the record, and it didn't quite balance out.
Yeah, he's not hitting those same moments that Cameron does, and like it's very noticeable. Even from the very beginning, the thing that Matt does at the beginning of Small Town is obviously not there, and you're like, oh, well, this is different. Josh just doesn't know the trademark kind of Cameron things that we've come to like take for granted almost. But yeah, you could tell like he's definitely trying to keep it simple and trying, not to do too much. I mean, again, I think we watched this on a live stream, part of it, but we don't have full video of everything. It would be interesting to get a camera on Josh early on and watch what he was doing and who he was watching and how kind of confident he was. But it's held together with string at this point.
All right, so now we're going to get the story as to why Ed is how he is on this night, and he's being pretty vulnerable here, and he's also very confident. He's very confident in his voice, and he says, I've been singing really, really good this tour, and I'm not sure exactly what happened yesterday on the off day, but I woke up this morning, and it got worse. I have the worst kind of stomach food poisoning. I've never been on stage feeling this shitty. The only other time was, of course, San Francisco, where I wasn't even able to take the stage and Neil Young took over. Ever since then, I always said that we're not canceling. It's been 25 months, but you sing from your guts, and they're hurting right now Forgive me. I'm going to try my best. I'll take your help. It's better than the alternative. But we have 5, 6 incredible musicians up here, so I know they'll step it up. You'll step it up. I know we'll wake up in the morning and feel alive. And Evolution being the next song. So, okay, like, it's going to happen every now and again. There's usually 1 or 2 shows on the tour where Ed's sick. And it's from vocal wear and tear. And that's just going to happen this late in the career, or he does get, traveling a lot. If you're susceptible to colds, then it's just going to happen to you. But he's never had a cold let him cancel a show. And I think that kind of falls under this category too. So Ed is kind of working a Michael Jordan flu game here situation in a way. I mean, he kind of is. He kind of is.
They probably should have postponed this, though. Like, they probably
I would have been
not
freaking out
this.
if they did. Everybody would have freaked out if they did.
But then, like, maybe Jeff doesn't get COVID, then, who knows?
Yeah. It's just, what we got here is important enough. And, just leave the moment with Dave Krusen. All right. Yeah, Evolution is next. It's played slower, back to its groove, back to the roots that kind of made it a surf rock song. Stone's solo is very effect heavy, which I think was sort of the game plan very early in 1998 as well. But, it's all about Ed making it through, and they just do what they got to do.
He does change the lyrics to "I'm the first man to try to play like this," so he's hurting.
Yeah. But right after Evolution, he's going to do the one thing he shouldn't be doing, and that's speaking again. And he says, as you see on every show on this tour, it's been different. This one is certainly different. Cameron, we lost him, but he's making strides to come back to the stage. But COVID took him down hard. We had to rally some troops and use everyone's talents to the best of their abilities. But who knew that Josh Klinghoffer was a fabulous drummer? We've got another surprise for you coming up soon. The other night, it was a woman's 100th show. Tonight, it's Rob Bleetstein from Pearl Jam Radio. That's his 300th show. Very impressive. I've only been to just a few more than that. And do I call you Fresnonians, Fresnoites, friends in Fresno? And then after the little friends in Fresno thing, he starts kind of strumming and singing. And he expresses his love for Lenore here. And I'm going to guess that it's probably due to surfing, because he says, I have friends in Lenore, and later in the show, he'll express how much he truly loves Lenore, which I honestly didn't look up on the map, so I don't really know in comparison where it is next to Fresno, I suppose. All right, Corduroy, Wishlist, and Daughter. What do you got here?
Corduroy was not bad. It felt like Josh was kind of getting some confidence here in these three. I mean, they're going straight fan-friendly, some of the more popular songs. We're going to get a deep cut, but I'm sure this was like, okay, Josh, what do you know and what can we do that's easy for you? So it felt like he was getting confidence and it was getting a little better.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that the bridge was really good. I think that, especially at the tail end of that, where he kind of went and did that Hail Mary surge that Cameron does right at the end. I thought that was very impressive. I think because you get so used to, it's kind of like comfort food, especially with Corduroy, a song that you just hear and love every single time it's played, but it's very, very cymbal heavy in the verses, and that kind of threw me off just a little bit, but everybody's going to do it different, and you got to do it how you feel comfortable. I fully understand that. I thought about this in Daughter a little bit, that it takes a smart crowd to really, truly have your back on some songs. And I thought the crowd did a nice job on Daughter, especially when they got to the Rise Above It, because sometimes you just need to take it upon yourself. This was a show where that crowd needed to be on every single big sing-along line. And I thought that they had hit that with Daughter. Ed was starting to get a little bit loose. I don't think it really would come until we get into the Krusen stuff, but not bad stuff here. I thought even Wishlist had like it was a little sloppy, but even the beginning felt like they kind of extended the instrumental part, which had a little bit of a bite to it, which was interesting. But yeah, it's just a nice little 3 songs in the set, stuff that your crowd is going to enjoy, and I'm sure they put it all here because these are songs that Josh can probably figure out in his sleep.
Here's the question. Is Ed trying to convince himself that it's okay when he keeps repeating that in the daughter tag?
Probably.
Is he speaking to himself there?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and not even just because of himself, but because, this could go back to what happened in Oakland, where during even flow he starts like raging and he starts getting really mad, and he kind of has to hold himself back. And I wonder if that kind of mentality is still with him in this. Like, you lose a guy that has been your rock for the last 24 years, and it's going to feel different. It's going to hurt a little bit. So I wonder if that's still an adjustment for him at this point. But yeah, he says it's okay, but it's not the crowd celebration. They didn't do a version of It's Okay for real during this whole tour year. So that's an unfortunate miss, but that's sort of what happened with this. Ed asking everybody in the front, does anyone have some cups? This is one of those rare nights I won't be drinking, but I don't want it to go to waste. Here's to all people waiting in line very early. My friend Stone Gossard is doing me the honor and a favor. He's going to sing the next one. And Stone just not even have to talk about himself. He's just like, give it up for Ed. He's doing a great job out here. Thank you so much. It's tough sometimes, and this is one of those days. We played this backstage, so who knows? Maybe it'll be all right. Here's Don't Give Me No Lip. Yeah, who knows? 38 shows since it was last played, Wrigley of 2016. This is down-tuned for Stone. And, of course, everybody's vocal cords are going to take a hit later in life. And Stone doesn't sing that much. You might not notice it in latter half of Pearl Jam where they do a Mankind or something like that. But yeah, I think he needs it just as much as Ed needs it on certain songs as well. That's no surprise, but it did sound a little rusty in parts, especially the beginning, and it reminded me a little bit of like them trying to figure it out on the fly in Ottawa, but it finds a good place, and Josh picked it up at the end and really gave this a nice edge to go out on.
Yeah, it gets an A for effort, and I like Stone giving us the behind the scenes info of like I can just picture them like right before they go on, like in a circle, like, all right guys, here's Don't Give Me No Lip, let's run through it real quick. I love that visual of them trying to put it all together. It's just a fun thing, and I wish they'd done both of them. Not only because I had them both on my fantasy team.
Yeah, you wanted streak points for that.
Just let Stone sing. Give Ed a break. Like, he's obviously struggling. Why not do both?
Well, it's funny because some of the game plan that they have in this show, they bring back in Amsterdam. Stone
for sure.
did Mankind in Amsterdam. They did Eruption, and obviously we don't get Cameron here, but in Amsterdam they did Black Diamond. So it's the same kind of game plan, essentially. But right now, those 7 songs are fine and all, but now we're going to get into the real stuff, the real moments. So it's time. We're going to just let Ed tee it up for you guys.
I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, I'm bringing this up for a reason. About 4 years ago, something like that, we were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And And it was nice and everything, and we're not complaining. We appreciated being recognized by our peers, and but the part that was the most rewarding was seeing some old friends, seeing some old bandmates, some people that we hadn't seen for quite a long time. And in one case, we had our friend come up to Seattle. His name, he came up. We only played a couple songs. But when this all went down with Matt the other day, we started thinking about all the other people that, you know, we've been through some great drummers, and some of the best, and we have the best currently. But you know, that first record seems to be a record that affected so many people. It's such a nice thing. But our friend that was playing drums at that time, you know, it just, the amount of shows that he got to play with us was fairly limited. Well, it looks like this week we're going to get to make up for that. Ladies and gentlemen, on the drum kit, Mr. Dave Krusen. Listen up. To say what I really live without pain, yeah. Backstreet lover on the side of the road. I got a bomb in my temple that is gonna explode. I got a 16 gauge beard under my clothes. I play.
Right from the entry into Once, you witness how just smooth he is and how nonchalant he is about what he's doing. Going back to some points before, the other three drummers just have like a tendency of being their own personality and bringing their drummer personality in here. And, you know, right away from Krusen, it's just like he's going back to the original groove. He is doing more with less, and he's letting the whole entire band shine on this. And I think, you know, for my money, especially in the last 10 years, that's one of the best Once solos from Mike I've heard in a long time. That was incredible.
Yeah, well, we've seen that before. When Ed is struggling, Mike will take over and be like, guys, this is going to be my show now. Add that to everything that's happening with Cameron and Krusen being there. I think, yeah, Mike is going to step up and be the star of the show.
That's even like kind of going into sort of Krusen's role in this too, that Krusen's kind of setting the moment for Mike to just be the star. And I'm not saying that the other drummers wouldn't do that, especially with
he's the point guard. Yeah, he's
right.
Dishing out assists.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm just so impressed by listening to all this. And again, like it's so tough with all the sample sizes that we have, and especially since none of them are official bootleg quality stuff, that you don't really get to feel what kind of drummer he's like live. But this is phenomenal. I had such a fun time listening to him.
In a couple of years, we're going to get desperate. We're going to have to do a whole year of Candlebox live show reviews to really dig into his style. But
you really think that we're going to get that desperate with about 1,500 more shows to do?
I know. I just wanted to throw that. No, but I thought like the performance. I think he was definitely nervous. And like you see there's a moment too he gives a big smile and like you see like, oh, okay, he's settling in. But like this guy hasn't played with them in 5 years that was just one song. He hasn't been in front of a crowd like this. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was definitely a more kind of upscale, sit down, black tie crowd. But the thing that stuck out to me is I think Ed's definitely feeling 1991. He does the, it could happen to me, it could happen to you, it could happen to me, that he was known for doing back then. So yeah, this is kind of like, of all the struggle and the survival of the first part of the set, everybody here gets to kind of take a breath and have this big moment of this triumphant return of this guy. And like, you heard Ed talk about it, like, oh, he never really got a chance to enjoy the success. Like, this is kind of his moment. And it's just the most perfect thing that they could have done in this situation to bring him back and let him have this moment and have it be special for this crowd when this show could have been an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, from the first 7 songs, if they had to continue on that route, then it was going to be really tough. But and legitimately, this was the first thing I thought about. When Krusen takes the stage, it takes like a couple of songs. I think by Black, it's just in full normalcy.
Yeah.
But Eddie is like Charlie Bucket's grandpa.
Yeah, he looks almost 60 at this point. Like, I mean, it's probably being sick is a big part of it, but he looks frail and old at the show. It's kind of sad.
But it is funny because once Krusen comes in, it's like Charlie coming home with the golden ticket, and Grandpa jumps right out of bed. Like, okay, where'd that come from? You've been sick for 20 years or whatever. But, now he's just like, okay, yeah, I'm suddenly kind of better. You kind of mentioned before that Ed is doing a little bit of the things that he does, in 1991, 1992. One of the things that I notice right off the bat in Why Go is that, like, Matt, usually with this is like a power song for Matt, where Matt comes in. It's one of those moments that right away, like, the intention of it is to get your crowd to move and pump their fist and sing, like, right away, chanting right away. And when Dave comes in for Why Go, it's more subtle. It's more kind of contained. And it allows for you to actually hear Jeff on this. And then it kind of brings everybody in piece by piece and develops before it gets to Ed. I was just very impressed by the space that he was able to give it, and he lets it evolve and kind of progress into the verse rather than just like beat you over the head with it and turn the crowd into like this sweat-inducing, real workout kind of aerobic sort of song. And it still works out that way.
See, that's funny because you hear it that way as like him giving it space and letting the other band members have their moment. For me, I thought he was keeping it very simple on this. This is still the second song. Part of this is him just trying not to fuck up. I think there's a part he finally in the solo, I think lets go and does like a little fill, like little flourish of something. Up until I think, like you mentioned, Black is the part where he kind of relaxes and kind of, oh, okay, I feel a little more comfortable now. I think he's still got a little bit of that deer in the headlights look, like, I'm really here, this is really happening, I need to make sure I get through these okay.
If you just kind of take a minute and just listen to the whole thing, and you're brought back to 10. You're brought back to the original record. So many of you turned this record on when you were 13, 14 years old and heard this version. And whether or not there were nerves, you should say to yourself it almost deserved to have nerves because it was that special and important of the moment. Absolutely. You're creating this moment, you're bringing him in for that specific reason. And if you're not going to tap into what he did originally, then are the songs going to hit as well? Oh
yeah, if he had come out and tried to do what Cameron does, it wouldn't have worked. Yeah, he's got to be himself. Yeah.
all right, even flow, Garden, then Black is going to follow that. Ed's a bit more energetic and he's a bit more loosened up in even flow. And I think he's having a lot of fun with the crowd. And they just become the backing choir for the choruses in this. And Ed here isn't attempting to push himself as much. He kind of knows. He's like, all right, well, I can't do my job, but I can enjoy everybody else doing theirs right now. He was just kind of embracing that moment and didn't need to be 100% Ed. He just kind of let everybody else do his thing and then said, you guys want to sing in the crowd anyway, so I'm going to play back and let you do it. But, the last three songs here from, Once a While Ago and Even Flow, this is the start of an incredible McCready streak. He is on fire till about when they get to Throw Your Hatred Down. So this is like 8 songs or so where Mike McCready is incredible.
Cut to Mike and he's soloing with his teeth. He just looks like he's possessed by a demon in this thing. That's the best way to put it. He's absolutely playing with his hair on fire. I agree. I think Ed didn't have to sing a single note on this, and he probably shouldn't have. I think the crowd was more than happy to take all of it. But yeah, Even Flow, I think, is part of it where Dave came in and relaxed a little bit and was able to kind of do things. You see him during the solo, he's just kind of holding it down, doing his thing. One of the moments I remember from watching this is like one of the really kind of sweet moments from this whole tour was, I think, after Even Flow, Ed kind of goes over and goes up on the drum riser and gives Dave a little fist bump, like, good job, man, like, we were doing it. And just that moment between the two of them I thought was really nice and really special.
The only other thing on Even Flow that I wanted to mention about Dave is just that, obviously, you make comparisons to Cameron because that's just what you do. We've done it the whole entire episode. But Cameron usually takes Even Flow, and while Mike is doing his own thing and kind of making a rock star of himself, Matt takes the opportunity to throw in these nasty fills and kind of he becomes the rock star himself. And it becomes sort of a tandem in which they do that. But I don't think that Dave even had one fill before he led back into the chorus. He just let it go. He just let it groove. And let Mike, just like in Once, just let Mike have it. Again, maybe it's nerves, maybe it's just like, I just want to keep the progression, let's listen to everybody else and then get comfortable in a second or two, but he does not even waver from that groove that he puts on. Not once in that song.
Yep.
Garden kind of has the same sort of idea. He just doesn't have to do too much to have an impact, but those transitional fills now is the point where you're starting to hear him put a little bit extra on it, and the fills are starting to really kind of stand out. And I was very impressed. Again, I think the whole thing, every song that he does and every song that everybody else kind of has his back on, it's just another moment where, again, Mike is putting his heart and soul into another very mournful kind of bluesy solo a little bit, and he lets him have it. Lets him have it on that too. And like, that is just not something you see in Pearl Jam at all.
In Garden 2 is definitely more of a slower tempo, so he can kind of relax a little bit and get into more of the groove and do some different things. And I think it's going to come to a culmination on the next song that we kind of teased it earlier. But yeah, I thought Garden was very good coming off of Even Flow. It's interesting too because, you know, they start with Once and you're kind of thinking like, oh, are they going to do the whole record? Because like you mentioned, oh, they sound checked a bunch of songs from 10, like Krusen's here, or are they just going to run through it? But I think the choice of songs from 10 was very well done too, to kind of give him a couple to warm up on, get to the big moment in Even Flow, and then I think Garden and the next one are very well placed after Even Flow as well.
One thing in my mind that I was thinking here was that there's a possibility that what they did could have been a set list that he had played, but it's not, because he didn't play one of the songs live at all, and then there's going to be a song when we get to the encore, he had only played that song once.
And they weren't doing Black a lot then either, yeah.
They weren't doing Black a lot, yeah. So maybe they only had Black, twice on the docket? Who knows? Maybe even once. I didn't even check on that. But again, we don't recognize him for these songs live, and now the fans are starting to get familiar with him. And I think it's just the realization that you're understanding what the history is with this. And even on Garden, he actually is able to go off at the end of the song and make it feel big. And I think that was a good transition into Black being the one. This is where Ed's going to say, Krusen, I'm very impressed. You know all the versions, you know all the endings. You invented that shit. Black is going to have this sense of comfort and calm. Ed is once again sharing the big moments with the crowd. And the solo is where finally Dave and Mike get to share it together.
Mike's solo on Black is just beyond human understanding. I mean, it's one of the best ones of the whole year. I think it just encompasses everything. I mean, we've talked about how Mike, he can get in that mode where he can take over a show and he will put the rest of the band on his back. And we didn't even mention too, like the whole time that Krusen is out there, Jeff and Stone are playing with them and coming back and turning around to the drums. Mike is over there a lot. Black, I think, is the one where it kind of all comes together and you kind of like, okay, this is what they were hoping for when they brought Krusen on. Like, this is the big moment and the one that he's going to remember for the rest of his life. There's going to be one later, I think, that's better. But of this part of it, I think it all kind of built up to this. And yeah, Black is one of the absolute highlights.
You mentioned Mike before being the demon, and he's all over the place here. He's either trying to release or embrace a demon here, and I'm not sure what it is. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But whatever condemned him, it was just fucking impressive. You're right. It's hard to say what that was and put that into words, but fuck, it was very, very good. So we're going to get a little drummer change here, and Ed thanks Dave for doing his thing for the last 5, but asked Mike, do we have any drummer change music? And Mike's going to do the Eruption solo, and we're going to get Richard Stuverud out here for the next 4, starting up with Animal.
Definitely a harder hitter on the kit than Krusen is. You know, we talked about at the beginning some songs that you think Krusen would have shined on. Like, I can't see Krusen doing Animal at this show. Like, they needed a change of pace. You can tell the difference immediately when Animal starts. Like, oh, okay, someone different is playing now. We got a basher back there now. So, yeah, definitely more of the rock and roll, like, let loose Seattle style rhythm behind the kit there. But yeah, I thought Stuverud did great. Animal, probably not my favorite of the ones that he was on. I think It's Gonna Build to Throw Your Hatred Down, I thought was the highlight of this little set. But what did you think of the choice of they're finally going to get a Gigaton song here?
For the Gigaton tour, the lone Gigaton song, I guess. But I think that Quick Escape was probably the right move. I can't remember, but I think he played on Quick Escape in Oakland. I know he played on Animal in Oakland.
Yeah.
I like the approach that he had on it. I think it was a little bit more of a pounding methodical pace rather than that, which is a little bit more progressive on it. And, you know, again, it slows it down a little bit. It lets the song breathe a little bit, and that might have to do with just the way that Richard's interpreting it, or just giving Ed a little bit more room to breathe and kind of play to the level that he's playing at on this night. It definitely opened up for the guitars to sound really good in this, and you know, while Mike is again on the hot streak, I even listened to the right ear in this, and you're hearing Stone is just embracing that very choppy kind of Jimmy Page type rhythm that gives its song its character. This is right from the bat. I always thought that this was very Zeppelin influenced, and I think right here is a good example of how they can kind of bring that to the table and excel on it.
I don't know if I'm on board with people who are not Matt Cameron trying to do Gigaton songs. Like, it just didn't sound like Quick Escape should sound. I mean, it was such a monster of a song when it came out, and this just felt like it had kind of no teeth to it. I know nothing against Stuverud. He's back there doing his best, but it's just such a Cameron fingerprint on it. It just sounds off hearing anyone else on it. Just kind of took me out of it a little bit.
Yeah, it's possible, but how many reps are you going to have with that before you can... Matt's good at it because Matt helped write the thing.
Sure.
And Stuverud probably had to learn it in a day.
Yep.
So, you know, I give him more credit for that, obviously, but you're not going to say that the original guy can't do his work on this song. It's just, yeah. So... All right, we're going to intro to Throw Your Hatred Down here, and this is going to be very, you know, talking about, I think the Buffalo shooting had happened just before this show, and the way that Ed is describing this whole thing is just like 10 people, another one in a grocery store, another one. It sounds like he's just like everybody else. He's real fucking sick of hearing about this, you know, and it's because nobody's done anything. Nobody's done anything since the first one. Nobody's done anything since the 9th one. And yeah, some of the laws are stronger now. They did put in a new bill that are stronger laws in place, but we saw this as recent as last couple of weeks. Yep. There was another one. The one in Colorado, you know? So that's, I think
there's average about one a day now.
I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah,
to be honest. But he says here, because he did mention something about seeing a lot of people of pro-choice in the front. He says he saw a teacher and a nurse, but he says, I think that there's a lot of people that believe to be pro-life, but what if the pro-life people started to become anti-gun? They want to save some lives. There's always that option. And that's getting into Throw Your Hatred Down. I think this song had a great 2022. I think they played it like 4 or 5 times, and every version was a banger on this tour. It was, I wouldn't even say that it had like a revitalization or anything, because the song is always very good, but I think that it went through a nice little run here. Not very often, again, 4, but this is part of the way that introduced itself back into the set and really gave a moment for Stone to become a force. This wasn't just Stone having a nice little solo, and some of his solos can get like really clean, some of them can get really slow. This is like Stone just with a gritty solo. How often do you get to hear like a gritty solo from Stone that sounds like he's like playing on like dirt almost?
I love this, and I totally agree on the year that Throw Your Hatred Down had. The one I think of immediately is Johnny Marr at Hyde Park.
Sure,
that was a great version, but mentioned earlier, I love Stuverud on this. He's not Jack Irons, and this will forever be a Jack song, but I think this song really, really fits what he does. And I think he really spread his wings and like kind of made this on his own. I love listening to Stuverud play this. I think, like you said, I think he did it in Oakland, I think, too, one of the nights.
Yeah, that's when they tagged Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah, absolutely love it.
Purple Rain is going to be next. This is going to be the live debut of Purple Rain, and it kind of questions, have they played it before? Well, you were there the one time they sort of played it. And
it was a tag.
It was a tag.
Yeah.
Right. It was just a Ledbetter tag. But yeah, this is the live debut of Purple Rain here. Another cover that kind of dominated 2022 in a way. And in the same way that you think back to like 2003, Know Your Rights, Fortunate Son, I Believe in Miracles. Like when you think back to those covers, that's the wheelhouse that those songs are in. And they're played in other years and other eras, of course, but you think back to those years. You think to 92, 93 for Sonic Reducer. For 1995, you can think to Let My Love Open the Door. To 2010, you can think of Kick Out the Jams. Cover songs seem to have specific eras and specific years where Pearl Jam kind of gets on a ride of them, and Purple Rain was played, I believe, 5 times this year. So they really kind of found a nice groove with it. And again, doing this in Amsterdam, same game plan that we talked about before with Eruption and Let Stone Sing a little bit, is that Klinghoffer gets to take the mic and do an absolute classic bit of the song.
From the land.
almost like he's doing a little bit of karaoke with it, but it's fun. It's meant to be entertaining. It's meant to be fun. And then when you get into just accelerated, cathartic moment of the song where everybody's doing those oohs, and they find a great place with this. And this may seem like an obvious choice for Prince, but I think this is well within their wheelhouse to continue on.
Yeah, I think Prince, one of the great underrated guitar players of all time. I think McCready really does a great job with this. I think he kind of built on it. There are a few later on in the year that he really lets loose on. But this being the debut, I think this is really just about, because I was not really a Chili Peppers fan. I'd not really followed Klinghoffer's career arc up until this point, but hearing him sing and do the Prince scream here was just, okay, that dude can scream like that, okay. That really like kind of takes you aback if you hadn't heard it before. That's what I remember about this, is just hearing Josh scream and being like, oh wow, okay, he's really going for it.
Yeah, there was one moment that I feel like I need to bring up. It kind of sounded like he was just a little bit corny, and he sort of stops. He's like, come on, everybody, raise your hand. And then right after that, it's like, hey, that was in the actual song. Like almost breaking the fourth wall of the song. And I thought that was a little corny and something that Ed does every now and again, but not even in a performance like this. It's usually like, okay, end of the night, do something kind of silly and alive, or Baba O'Reilly or something like that. But that was neither here nor there. But here's a long speech here. It's going to be about pro-choice. It's going to be about how Prince's music, and it's going to be hard for me to also transcribe this to you guys. If you want to know about it, it's out there. But the whole kind of premise about this, and I think it's just sort of waiting for Krusen to take his moment behind the kid again, is that if they overturn Roe v. Wade, all of these singers like Prince and Engelbert Humperdinck and Lou Rawls and Barry White, and even them, are going to go broke because women aren't going to want to have sex with men anymore. It's kind of funny at first, and then it becomes serious in a matter of seconds. And says if they overturn Roe, women should just say, that's it, not having sex anymore. If you come here, get up all in my business, have a great time with it, but then go do whatever the fuck you want. Am I required by law to raise an ugly-ass child? I'm going to have to be stuck with some shitty gene kid because I spent one night listening to Prince. Are you fucking kidding me? Fuck you, or better yet, don't fuck you. A sexual embargo, ladies, you got the power. That's pretty powerful, and it's stuff that, like, I don't know if other people can think to say that or have, like, the guts to say something like that. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, just to coin the phrase, sex embargo is worth the price of admission there. That's one of the great unused band names of all time. Hopefully someone's going to get on that. But, yeah, I mean, he takes it from, like, this lighthearted thing, and then he gets real serious, and then he's making jokes. He's going for the whole range of emotions here.
He does it perfectly. Now we're ready. Porch is coming. It's going to close the main set as it usually did for most of this tour. Krusen is get to show off a little bit of speed here after that break. A song like Porch is a little bit more of an outlet to break from the standard what Krusen was doing before. And during the early portion of Pearl Jam, while they were closing sets with Porch, it didn't really become the kind of jammy presence until, like, somewhere, I think the first one that they really do that in is the Mural Amphitheater show. That's the first one with Dave A. That kind of happened right when the album was being released. So it wasn't really a time where Krusen had that experience of, well, Ed going up on scaffoldings and stuff like that, but even to let Mike go off for, 7 to 8 minutes long. This is a 6-minute version of Porch. That's pretty under average even in this era as well. But the whole band gets to gather around Krusen for this. Ed is walking the length of the stage, connecting with the crowd, and Mike is going off on this as well. And there's a really, really good dip right before the big build to the end. And Krusen, it feels like he's getting another massive moment to shine here. It's very, very good.
Again, to me, it felt like when it got to the jam, he was a little unsure of what to do. And so he just kind of kept it very straight and very simple. I noticed a lot of him like looking at Stone and being like, okay, what are we doing here? And it, like I said, gets real quiet. And I wonder if that was his way of like, I'm going to add some dynamics to this without going crazy.
Yeah, I thought there were a few more fills and porch than I expected there to be, but overall, I mean, yeah, he's playing a safe card, I suppose. And that's another what if that you can talk about. Like, what if this was just sort of a warm-up run, and then he comes back in Sacramento, and these are, like, barn burners.
And we saw that in Oakland, too, with Stuverud and Josh. Like, the second night was much better.
Yep, exactly. You need a practice run, and it's going to be legendary no matter how you slice it, but later on, if they had the opportunity, then the legend would have grown. So, yeah, that's going to end out the main set, and we're going to come back with 4 more 10 and 10 era songs in the encore, but before that, we're going to pause for station identification and talk a little bit about all the things that are going on. If you're listening right now, if you're a patron, that WMA Evolution episode is out, and hopefully you guys have listened to that. If not, thinking about listening to that very soon. It's very good. It tells the whole entire story. And that is our sell for Patreon this week. You can't get a better sell than that. If you want to hear the whole history of not just WA's live history, but just the history of kind of what this song and what political Pearl Jam would become, we talk about all that. So there's a lot of good insight there. There's a lot of good research that we put into it, and we talk about tags, we talk about full versions mainly, and we also talk a little bit about Jay-Z. So if that piques your interest, head on over to patreon.com/live on 4 legs. You can pitch in $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, any of the tiers, and it all goes into what we're doing and helps us survive. So thank you for anybody that is a current patron out there, and hopefully you guys will want to listen to WMA. And I'm telling you guys, I say this all the time, if there is anything to join Patreon for, it is the Evolution episodes, and it's tough to get out, more than a couple a year because they do take up a lot of time to research, but we're getting lucky in December because this isn't the last one. We're getting one more in about a week or two. So yeah, get excited about all that. The way you can sign up on Patreon is go to patreon.com/live on 4 legs, download the Patreon app and search for Live on 4 Legs, or go to liveon4legs.com and click the Become a Patron button. That'll actually take you to patreon.com/live on 4 legs. So, either any way that you slice it, you're going to get to the spot that you need to get to. So I encourage everybody, even if you want to have a little bit of a test run just with WMA, and then I can give you some links. You can go to liveon4legs.com and check out the whole entire catalog of the Evolution episodes, because it might be a little tough to find on Patreon, but you can do all that, and that is the package that you get from Patreon. You get a lot of exclusive stuff. What else is happening? Live stream for the setlist draft is happening on December 18th. And that will kind of be, if you were watching last year, what we all did was the setlist frenzy draft. And that was exactly as advertised, wasn't it? It was pretty much utter chaos.
Oh, definitely.
And it's going to be a similar type thing. And we're still working on a little bit of the rules, but it'll be live streamed to Facebook over the Pearl Jam podcast community, and of course a couple other Pearl Jam groups out there. But you'll want to join these groups in order to watch it. And yeah, it's just going to be a lot of fun, and it'll determine our first ever setlist draft champion. At this point that we're speaking, we have 3 already that have moved on to the finals. We need 1 more, and you guys are going to vote on that next week. So stay tuned for all of it. And then I want to bring up the holiday party, you guys. We have that on the 15th. It's going to be a Zoom celebration. And, a lot of you joined up on the gift exchange and are a part of that. So we'll be opening up gifts for everybody that joined in. And we're going to be having a couple guests come in. We're going to have a couple musical performances. And really, it's just kind of a hangout. It's a celebration of you guys, especially after looking at the numbers from our Spotify end of year stuff from this year. You guys killed it. You guys killed it. I can't thank you guys enough as to your dedication to the show because, we say it all the time, but you guys are the reason why we continue doing this, and seeing those numbers, eye-popping numbers this past week was just, it warmed my heart, and I hope it warmed yours, John, because those numbers are not normal. They're not every day for a podcast
absolutely.
that just...
Yeah, that was amazing to see. Thanks, everybody.
We're not bought by a studio. We don't have a network. We're just doing it ourselves, and we pride ourselves on not selling commercial time or anything like that. And that's because you guys deserve that. And when you do that, I guess you get big numbers, I suppose. So thank you guys for making all of that happen. And again, the holiday party is just going to be a celebration for all of it. If you want to come, it's going to be on Zoom. Just get in touch with us. Either send me a message on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or you can send an email to liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you a link for the Zoom. I encourage everybody that's listening to come, because we know how rare it is for anybody to just go through their everyday life and have people understand their fandom for this band, and went through it for so many years. Like, I just wanted to talk to people about Pearl Jam. I wanted people to understand things that I understood. And it was nearly impossible to find anybody that didn't know much more than Jeremy. And I think that we try to do our best to bring that out of everybody, to dig into that ultra nerd fandom. That's why we kind of picked this niche, I guess, because there's just a lot to talk about, a lot to learn, and a lot that, you guys can embrace. So, we are hopefully that conversation that you wish you'd have with your buddy at work. And just, fortunate that we can be in that position, and humbled that we can. So the Zoom, I think that's just a culmination of everything. So if you want to join, again, encourage to everybody, please do so. We have a really, really good time. It's going to be a lot of fun. And hell, everybody's going to have a chance to tell stories. So if you got some stories to tell, if you want to share with people, feel free. That's what we're all about. All right, back to the rock. We got 6 more, and but not a huge storyline. But these encores in 2022 were not big at all. We did not get an encore 2, but I felt like everything was really satisfying this year, no matter what. Not 30 or 32 song sets, and the way that they did it for 24, I think worked out really, really well. I was very impressed by that. So Ed's going to start off by saying the coolest part about our job is to get to look out at all the faces in the crowd. And I don't know if you could predicted the statement to be so true. I spent more time in Fresno than any other in the past. And this is going back to what we were saying before about him spending time in Fresno. And he says, Fresno is my new place on the planet Earth. It's my happy place. It's the front doorstep to Yosemite. I had 10 days there that once changed my life. And if it's not Fresno, it's Lemoore. Not to mention it has the best surf in the world. Thanks for propping me up tonight. It means so much. I'll never forget it. And it's going to get into Jeremy. I thought that this one, I don't know. I didn't have as much on this one as I did the other 10 songs. I think it was fine. And I think it was elevated a little bit. But the point I really want to make here is that this is the one that on record, because we do not have a lot of the set list from 1991. We just don't, because it was that long ago and they were basically nothing. But on record, there was one and only time that Krusen had played Jeremy, and that was the debut that happened about a week before his last show with the band. Can you believe that? That's tough to think about, because you think Jeremy is so kind of part of the band's upbringing that you would just think that Jeremy would be part of the earliest run, that Alive and Even Flow and some of those other words. But it was the last one to debut live from 10.
Yeah, I think it was probably the last one written as well, like the last one to make it on the record. Yeah, that's interesting. The thing that stuck out on Jeremy too is that Ed just cannot do the who part. Like at the end, he goes to the microphone and then he kind of second guesses himself and be like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. And he like gives to the crowd as well. But this is one where he's gone through this whole set. He's not anywhere near 100%. And I mean, you just tell he's trying to get through the night in one piece. Like, he really pulls off a lot on these last few songs.
Yeah, the performance was fine. I think it was just outshined by the first six. It's going to happen. It might be Jeremy fatigue in some spots, but yeah, we got 3 more of these, so we'll continue to be impressed. But Ed is mentioning here that some of the things that Krusen is doing, like hitting that snare, kind of brought him back to being in the basement in 1990, 1991. And now he's going to tell a story that also kind of brings him back to that era as well. And it's something that we had never heard before from the origins of Deep.
I remember walking, well, I was staying in the studio, so I must have went out. I think I had to put money in the parking meter. And I was walking back, and it was a rare kind of sunny day in Seattle. Rare, especially back then. It's warming up a bit now, but it used to be just so rare to have a nice day. So I looked up, and I saw this guy. He had kind of blue cut-off jeans. He had kind of like a scraggly looking body, but kind of cool. You know, like a manorexic, but kind of cool. And he's a little scruffy, and he was about the second and third floor. But he was just sitting on the open windowsill. And I thought, that guy is just loving life right now. Like a beautiful day. He's got like, you know, it's kind of run down apartment, but he's got the window view. He's got the whole thing. And I looked up, and I was thinking, I wonder, I could wave to him, but he looks like, I don't know, maybe he might throw a knife at me or something. But and then I realized there is something in his hand, and then it is kind of reflecting some kind of the sunlight. And then I realized he was just shooting up on the windowsill. And I thought, well, I was thinking the day was pretty good anyways, but he was going to really try to make it peak somehow. And then I got nervous because, you know, I don't know that much about it, or didn't certainly then, but you kind of nod out. So was he going to go this way or that way? And so I kind of like stood by this mailbox acting like I was busy, like I wasn't going to catch him or anything, but what was I thinking? Sure enough, he started to nod, and then he fell back the other way and then disappeared into the apartment. Never to be seen again, but I sing about him often.
We had heard a little bit of the story. Some of it, I think, is in the PJ20 book, but not to this level of detail. Deep is one that, like, you had no idea it was that specific and based on a actual person who he sees, like, shooting up. But the thing that sticks out is, like, he kind of ran over, like, am I going to catch this guy? He's going to nod off, he's going to fall. Like, then he ended up falling back into the apartment, like, never to be seen again. Like, it's just a great story.
I think it's interesting that Ed sort of created a character for this guy, because he says, you know, Seattle, we never get any sunny days there. He creates this character for this guy that, he's just loving life. He's sitting out on the windowsill and, you know, takes a closer peek and no, he's shooting up. So everything can't be through rose-colored glasses all the time, but it was a great story and great insight, and I love when a story like that can transition you into the song. You just get excited for it. You get excited for a version like Deep like this. And I thought this version was really good too. I think that one of the things, you know, just like taking the bridge for Krusen, I think, you know, there was a moment that Dave A went really, really hard on the surge when he did it. And in this version, again, it's Krusen just not going overboard, not driving in first gear. He kept it pretty simple on this and kind of kept, I guess, more traditional in a way.
There's a cool moment where you see Ed kind of like turning back towards Dave and like kind of sending him some waves. It looked like he was kind of making a wave with his hands, like sending him these waves through the air. That was kind of cool. And then the ending, it felt like they were trying to do the kind of descent into chaos, but it's almost like the old guy version of that. We're like, let's not get too crazy because we've got to be home by 8.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's chaos, but it gets a little weird and a little kooky at the end. They're definitely trying to do something there.
Also, that was a Dave A thing too.
That's right.
Going back, I don't think Krusen had many versions of Deep where he did stuff like this. And again, that's not one that I think we have too many opportunities to hear him on, but that was a staple of Dave A's in 1992, 1993. So I get that. I get that he was a little confused on that, but he finished it off. And now we're going to get into one that he had never played live before at all. It's his debut of playing State of Love and Trust. And you see that Mike comes right up to the riser, and he's just like putting the guitar in the forefront, like strumming the chords kind of to show him his face is like, look at me in the eyes. And now you come in, and kind of gave him a signal that way, because, you know, it must have been forever since he had played it, maybe even forever since he had listened to it. One of the things I thought about this was that there was one thing I kind of wanted the song. It might have been like a little bit of false hope, but there are versions very, very early on in the song, and I think even in the recording too, where you don't get right away into Mike's solo. It's Jeff kind of doing that like sludgy little bass line, and they kind of take a sec. The drums build it back up to go into the solo, and it's sort of an extra measure there. And, you know, thinking that this would be closer to an original, that they would do that again. And, you know, I wasn't surprised that they didn't do it, but I was a little bit disappointed. I think that there was an opportunity there where they could have gone in that direction.
I think they've completely forgotten how that part goes. I don't know.
Maybe.
And it's been so long. I think if you even sat down and like told them to do it, I think they'd be like, huh? What? It's just gone. They should have gone like way off the deep end and played like the slow, sludgy demo version of it. That would have been crazy too. But the story again is Mike just on the floor, going off on the solo completely, just losing his mind.
Much as you can say that this is Krusen's show, this is, again, a massive, massive Mike show. And like I said, he's just making up for all of those moments that Ed can't do here. The 10 songs especially, he's the ace of it. So, yeah, Krusen sounded great. Jeff sounded great on this. And, yeah, they all work together really well. But this is kind of the culmination of everything. When you get to this song, and yes, he played it at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it's because it's this important. And the way I see it is this. Out of all the opportunities that Dave missed, this one song could have just been the one opportunity. And it really, essentially, when you think back on it, Alive was the first song that they wrote together, because it was the first song on the Mama song. Maybe there were a couple others that they played around with and perfected with first, but I always have thought of Alive to be Pearl Jam's first song, which is amazing because you almost never say of any other band that your first song can be considered your best song. And seeing how this song really helped propel Pearl Jam to where they would end up going, and seeing how this song has always been the big crowd pleaser, the big party song, it gave them maybe not the most commercial success, but I think as a band and as this rock legacy act, I think everybody goes back to Alive being like another moment, sort of like Smells Like Teen Spirit, that you could say is the kickoff to what grunge was. And Dave didn't experience any of that. So getting Alive here, I think, is the way of saying, you deserve to see all this. You deserve to be part of it. You helped invent it, like Ed would say before, and you never got a taste of that glory. You missed it, and you deserve this.
Have I got a little story for you? What you thought was your father was nothing but while you sit home alone at age 13. Oh, your real daddy was dying. Sorry you didn't see him, but I'm glad we talked. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Oh, she walks slowly across the young man's room. She said, I'm ready for you. I can't remember anything to this very day except the love. You know where now I can see him. Oh, I can stay.
Yeah, it's the perfect song to have his final song of the night, to kind of bring everything together. It's just the perfect storm of nostalgia and the big moment and the triumphant return and survival, everything that the song has been about. Yeah, I think this is absolutely fantastic and hands down the performance of the night, and maybe even more. Just getting to watch him on this, it's just like, man, like that's what it could have been. I mean, that's for all the kind of like nervousness and tentativeness of other songs. Like Alive is the one where he feels comfortable. It's like they've gone through this whole night, getting to the end of the show. Alive is the big celebration, and to have him be there just felt really special. And you could tell the whole band really was just savoring every second of this performance, being like, this might not ever happen again, so we need to make sure we are in the moment for this. And it's just a transcendent performance, I thought.
I think it's even bigger than what the actual performance is. I think all those things that we both just said are what makes this one of the most important songs of this year, one of the most important performances maybe of the past 10 years in Pearl Jam. And I think it's a way for the crowd to take a second and say, look at all what we just witnessed. And then at this point, I can't see a time, unless you really dealt with something with another drummer, with Cameron again, that you could. Overall, it's just something that he deserved to have. It's something that he earned, and it's something that he unfortunately missed. On that scale, I just want to almost know what it was like to be him in that moment, because all those feelings and, you know, all those practices and all those live shows where they did that, this one, just like Even Flow and just like a couple others, had to have felt real good, and they knew that they had something with it.
You even see, I think Mike at the end has got his Polaroid out, just taking pictures. He wants to capture this moment too, like, just super special, and it was amazing to watch, and amazing to watch again. It's a great performance.
You know, I was a little bummed out after this. I think that he fully deserved to take a bow. I think that he fully deserved to take like one final minute to look at the crowd and just encapsulate all of that adoration. And I think he deserved that center stage, and unfortunately, it must have been a time crunch because they had 2 more left and quickly got Stuverud on. There's barely a transition at the end of the live into Baba. Barely anything.
I think he comes out. I remember him coming out at the end of the bout, too. I think at the end of the show, he has a moment.
Yeah, but that was a team thing. I think that he deserved to have his own moment with the crowd. And I know that they're not really about that, but in this particular instance, I think that it warranted that. So we get Baba and Ledbetter with Stuverud back out, and now you feel real good. I think the band really felt, some positive energy going because they knew how special the moment was. They knew how special it was to their history and kind of all brought back to the early days where they were nothing. I think that everybody was just having fun with this, and I think Baba was one of the ones that Stuverud was really keen on playing, that he wanted to do, and I don't know, but I think he was playing it all 3 shows. I think he played it at all 3, and it sounded like he was having a blast. It sounded like the whole entire band was having a blast. Really heavy, kind of intense version, and even like the ending, they let Stuverud kind of finish it off because it didn't have that sort of thing where Mike is sort of strumming with it and kind of going along. It felt like it just kind of had more of a booming presence to go out on, which was very interesting to hear and a nice performance.
I remember a moment from this too, watching this. There's a thing where I think Jeff goes up on the drummerizer and he and Stuverud kind of lock in together and play together and have a cool little moment during this. Very, very, very good performance. I mean, it's going to get overshadowed by the Krusen stuff, but Stuverud has some really great moments in the show as well, and this is one of them. Yeah, he absolutely beats the shit out of Baba O'Reilly here, and the ending, like you mentioned, is just killer. This is a great performance.
So this is a record, I think a world record for Pearl Jam here. Ed is thanking not 5, not 6, not 7, but 9 band members in total. He thanks all of them, like you were saying before. Everybody comes out, but it's almost his way of doing like Bruce's intros for the E Street Band, like now we have over here, but obviously didn't play it up that much. And then Mike grabs the mic and says, how about Ed tonight? And yeah, I think he deserved a little bit of recognition for going out there and doing what he did with absolutely nothing in the tank. There is a moment where you kind of do hear like that first note of indifference, and then something changed. I guess somebody it's very subtle, but I noticed it. And I guess somebody said, no, we're doing Ledbetter. That's why I think he says it's not indifference, but it's close at the end there. Ledbetter's going to send you home happy. And that would have been cool to see Krusen on Ledbetter, to be honest with you. I don't know how involved he was for that song. Probably not much, maybe, because they did record it when they were in studio, right?
That might have been an Abraziz recording. I don't know.
Was it during like a mixing or something like that?
Maybe.
Because I thought
it could have been. We know they obviously didn't play it live till 93, but it didn't seem like it seemed not a difficult one to do, So it would have been a nice moment. I like Ed's last words on this one. He just comes on and says, "Oh, I won't forget this one." So this is one that was special for them.
That's right. Yep, and hopefully it was special for you guys too. So let's pick 3 moments and rank them here. As much as I love Throw Your Hatred Down, I think I got a full plate of 10 stuff. I'm going to start with Once. I thought that the kickoff was really important. You said that there was a little bit of nerves and stuff like that. You notice it, of course, but I think it's just the first note kind of reminding you of what the original sound was. That was the comfort food that you needed to get you into what Krusen was going to do in this set. I think that Black is going to be my number 2. I thought overall was probably the best performance of the show, but Alive is number 1 because of how important it is to the whole landscape of what has happened with this band.
I agree. Like any other show, Throw Your Hatred Down, Baba O'Reilly would have been on this list, but I have to go with the Krusen stuff. I think Even Flow number 3, Black number 2, Alive number 1. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Now we're going to rate this. I'm going to be totally honest with this rating. When I listened to the first 7 songs, I said there's absolutely no way that I can give this the perfect score because I thought that a lot of the first 7 just sounded almost next to unlistenable. It felt really clunky. It felt really messy. And that's not to say that not understanding the moment. Of course, you understand the moment, but it is a lot about listenability. And once Krusen took the stage, none of that mattered at all. None of that mattered. And that meant that when Stuverud came out, his song sounded terrific. You just can't put the first 7 into the equation here at all. This is about honoring history. This is about honoring an original band member. This is about having the rare opportunity to do so. There's no other score I'm giving it a 10.
Really?
Yep.
This is 100% not a 10 show for me.
Well, I'm not giving the show a 10 because the performances were all perfect. I'm giving it because it's important to grasp that.
Oh yeah, historically wise, sure, it's up there. But yeah, I just can't give this one a perfect score. It's just not there. I mean, there's definitely important moments, maybe some of the important moments when everything's all said and done and we look back at everything. But yeah, I cannot give this a 10. I'm going to bump it up from what I wanted to give it because of the historical importance and everything. You swayed me a little bit on that. I will give it a 9.
Ooh, you were down in the 8s for this, huh?
Yeah, I really was. And maybe even lower because performance-wise, it's just not something you're going to go back to really. But yeah, I mean, if we're just grading on historical importance and the moment, then yeah, it's 100 out of 10. But we can't do that. I gotta look at the whole thing. So yeah, I'm gonna go 9 on this.
For me, it was way too important to involve the first 7 and say that the first 7 add into what this whole entire show is, because it wasn't about that. And it's not even really about Ed being sick after a while. You know what I mean? You kind of forget it as the show goes on. There are moments
I did not forget. This is
there
a bad
are moments where it's clunky. There are moments when it's clunky, but I think you're just enjoying the aspect of this is one of the most rare off the wall things that they've ever tried. I had to give it its credit. It was not an easy decision for me to come up with that. Maybe the show performance-wise was in the 8 category, but again, I just think it's more important than all that. So, but hey, you need a controversial show every once in a while, right? Kind of spice things up. But next week, I don't think there'll be too much controversy. We'll get to our European tour show that we're doing, Frankfurt, Germany. That kind of happened just the tail end of the early part, almost right before you got into the Hyde Park shows. And some of the things that were coming out, the first 4 shows, and especially when Americans are paying attention to European shows, I think they're just like, wow, I'm not going to go out and seek this if it doesn't have something specific in the set that is going to wow me. And I don't disagree. I think there were moments from the first 4. I think Imola is a great show, by the way. I think Imola is definitely, don't frown upon that at all. I think it's a fantastic show. But Frankfurt was definitely the first where you could say, okay, Pearl Jam is going back to throwing shit at the wall, and it's working.
It felt like they were hitting their stride in this one. Yeah.
Yep. After that, I think they needed a show like that before getting into Hyde Park. You need a confidence show, and this was certainly that, with a lot of surprises, a lot of songs we haven't heard in a long time. When doing this and watching live streams and tweeting it all, like everything that was announced was just unbelievable, one after the other. So can't wait to get into that one. And then we'll get into St. Louis the week after that. But thank you all for listening in. And hopefully you guys are subscribed over on Spotify or Apple. And if you're not, please click it. Just click it and say, I'm subscribed. I can get the updates on this show. And if you are on either of those platforms, feel free to give us a rating, hopefully a 5-star rating. Hopefully we have achieved that. And if you're on Apple, there's a section where you can comment and let the people know what you think about this podcast. If you think highly of it, you want to recommend it to somebody, people are going to look and they're going to see what people are going to say about it. And it's always good to have the positivity thrown in. So if you got something good to say, let the people know, and hopefully we'll keep expanding and growing upon our listenership. All right. This one's over. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, miss you already, miss you always. So it was not the best show in the world, but it still got a 10 from one of us. Now we head on to the next show next week. I wonder how the Hall of Fame will be looking at the end of the year, not having Fresno in it, but we'll see you next week.
It's like the old days, Mikey.
Love you, Fresno. Wherever you're from. Thanks for this tonight. Thank you. I won't forget this one.